Morning, I'm C.A. Savoy, Capillary Woodturners, Alexandria, Virginia. This morning I'm going to give you a sharpening demo on wood turning tools. Now this is the way I do it. There are a lot of videos out there and a lot of people doing demos showing you how to sharpen wood turning tools. So I'm going to go through the basics of what I do. My preferred grinder is a slow speed 1725 grinder for sharpening. It just so happens that this one right here is a 2-speed grinder, which I no longer can purchase. And if I had my druthers, I would have the 2-speed grinder because you can use the slow speed for sharpening your tools, the high speed for shaping your tools. But let's just skip over that. The grinder would be equipped with aluminum oxide wheels, 1-inch, 8-inch aluminum oxide wheels. We also have another system that has the CBN wheels on them. That's the cubic boron nitrate wheels. I'm not going to go any further than explaining them. Just go to the web on Google and Google it and it'll tell you all about them. These wheels will last you a long time, but they're very expensive. They start out at about $150+ a piece. The system I like for sharpening is the Wolverine sharpening system from One-Way Manufacturing. It comes with the 2 holders, a V-bar, and a platform. That's called the Wolverine sharpening jig. Other attachments you can get to it also is the mini platform and the original Varigrind and the new Varigrind 2. And I'll go through all the sharpening procedures using both jigs. We'll start off this morning sharpening scrapers. Now, the traditional scraper would be just flat across the top with something greater than 90-degree angle. 75 or 80 is what I prefer. But what I do on my scrapers, this becomes what I refer to as a finishing scraper. I do a negative rake on the top side of the tool, and there's no set angle, just a negative rake, and then I sharpen the nose to 75 or 80 degrees. And what this does, this becomes a cutting tool. Unlike a normal scraper, you would have the handle up, the nose down, and actually scrape. With this tool, you go in and you rub the bevel. It becomes a cutting tool. And you can hog out the inside of a bowl with this. Beautiful cuts. In fact, you can do the outside of a bowl with it too. Now, how do you sharpen this? Or any scraper? And normally, on these grinders, they come with a 120 grit wheel and an 80 grit wheel, okay? When you get yours, your 60 may be on 60 and a 120, I'm sorry. Your 60 may be on one side and the 120 on the other. It depends where you get the grinder from. On this one, I happen to have a 120 on this side. Now, if I'm sharpening a scraper, I'll go ahead and do this side first. If it's original, do this side first on the rough wheel, and then come over here and use a smooth wheel because I want this surface to be perfectly smooth. Then I would take and go over here to the rough wheel, whether it be 60 or 80 grit, and put my 75 or 80 degree on there, and that raises my burr. And that's all there is to sharpening a scraper. Now, when it comes to sharpening let's say one of these little 1/4-inch skews. Once again, you just match the angle. Now let me tell you this about sharpening, because sometimes if your eyesight's not very good, even if it's good, you can't see where you have sharpen the tool. And once again, most people refer to it as grinding the tool. I don't refer to sharpening my tool as grinding. I refer to sharpening my tool as sharpening. So this is sharpening the tool, not grinding the tool. You set the platform, put the tool up there, put the tool to the wheel. Remember, you got it painted. Go ahead, turn the wheel and see where it's rubbing the black off. If you got it where you want it, turn the grinder on and go ahead and sharpen it. And this guy, you just go back and forth. Like, okay, I'll turn the machine on and we'll do this very quick. Okay, that's all there is to sharpening that tool. Now, we can continue using the platform for sharpening a skew. Now, on a skew, what I like to do, and I learned this from Alan Lacer, this angle is 1.5 times the thickness of the steel. Okay? It just so happens on this one, if you was to measure the bevel, it's 35 degrees. And that's another thing. How can you determine the bevel on a tool if you don't have a protractor? Everybody should have one of these little angle gauges, okay? To check whatever you, if I say it should be 35, then you put it on there and look at it, it's 35. How do you sharpen this tool? Once again, put it on the platform, bring the platform up till it's registering on the wheel. Once again, you would paint that black to make sure you get it. Turn the machine on, lock this down, make sure it's locked down. And once you lock your platform down, turn your wheel like that and make sure it's not touching the platform. Put it on the platform, turn the machine on, sharpen away. That is a conventional skew. My preferred skew is, once again, I learned this from Alan Lacer, is somewhat of an oval profile. From this point to that point is about 70 degrees. The first 1/4 of an inch or so on that tool is flat, and then it slopes down. Once again, this angle here is 1.5 times the diameter of the tool, the thickness of the tool. How do you sharpen that? Once again, on the platform, and away you go. Okay? Very simple, very simple. Now, on the platform also, and I'm going through all the platforms first. The 3-point tool, once again, on a platform, match the bevel, turn it on, all 3 points. 3-point tool, okay? Little 1/4 inch scrapers. Once again, you see I have negative rake. On all my scrapers, I use the negative rake. I find them cutting better, they cut cleaner. Once again, the setup on this, same way. You go to your rough wheel, you do your profile, come back to your smooth wheel, smooth it up, go back to your rough wheel, do your 75, 80 degree, and that's it for that. Now, how do you sharpen hollow turning tools? Okay, these little tips. These are little 3/16 cutters that are glued in, so when you sharpen them, you do not want to heat them up a lot, because if you do, it'll break the glue joint. Just set your platform, and once again, on these little guys, there's no set angle. Anything better than 90 degrees will cut. So you just put it on the platform and present it to the front of the wheel. Once again, present it to the front of the wheel and just roll off the side. That's all there is to sharpen, okay? Present it to the front of the wheel, roll off the side. And you don't want to take a lot of metal off because there's not a lot of metal to deal with. You can also slipstone, okay, and get by with that. but I find it cuts better with that little bit of burr you get off the wheel. So I rarely ever slipstone. And my problem with slipstoning, if you don't get it perfectly and you round it over, you have no cutting edge. So I rather trust the grind. One more tool that we can use the platform for. And I'm not saying that all of the tools that I showed you are the only ones you use the platform for. This is some of the ones you can use the platform for. Now on the thin kerf porting tool, there is no set angle for here. There is no set angle for there. Whatever makes you happy and whatever cuts. Some people just bring the angle right on down to the bottom of the tool. I find that putting that little bevel there makes the tool cut better. You ride the bevel and bring it into the cut. How do you sharpen that? When you first get the tool, it may or may not have that little bevel on there. If you want it on there, the only thing you have to do is take it up to the wheel, turn the wheel on, and go ahead and put that bevel on there. Okay, that's all there is to that. Now, you want to set your platform up for whatever angle you like that is being.
From a safety standpoint,
Go
should you have been changing that platform with the wheel roll?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'm
Yeah, that's fine.
to be a smart.
Oh, we stopped? Oh,
No, but it's okay.
okay.
Start wherever you want.
When you change your platform, make sure the wheel is stopped. And this is called a Cajun brake. Everybody's got to have a Cajun brake. So we stopped the wheel, and I'm going to go ahead and set up the platform for the profile on the front of this tool. That's close enough. Lock it down, spin it to make sure it's spinning, turn the machine on, put the tool on the platform, just back and forth across the wheel until you have it all sharp. Okay, that is all there is to sharpening that particular type of tool. Okay? So basically, that is all the tools I'm going to use a platform for. Now, there is one other platform. Remember, don't move the platform till you stop the wheel. Okay. If you happen to have a tool that is short, then you need the small platform. I'm not going to adjust this platform because it's already been pre-adjusted for something. But anyhow, if you have a tool, let's say that's only that long, the big platform, you can't use it unless you put a riser block on it. These little platforms are great. Get you any place you want to go. So this is an accessory to the Linaway sharpening system. And now we'll go with the V-bar. Where is the V-bar? Right here. The tools that you use the V-bar for. You can use it for your parting tool. Put the parting tool in, the butt of the parting tool in the pocket. Match the bevel. Lock it down. Turn the machine on. And sharpen the tool. Okay? You can do it that way, or you can also use the platform. You can do the same thing, set the platform at the angle you want, and go ahead and sharpen it using the platform. Okay, so you can sharpen a parting tool using the V-bar or the platform, or in a case of experienced turners, you can do it freehand. You can actually just go up to it and do it like that. But don't do that until you have some experience in sharpening tools. Now, this is a spindle roughing gouge, and you set the angle. Now, the angle on the spindle roughing gouge, my preferred angle is about 45 degrees. Set it in the pocket, set it on the wheel. Once again, you would paint the front of the tool that you're going to sharpen. And remember, I said sharpen, I didn't say grinding. You're sharpening a tool, you're not grinding a tool. Set the angle up, lock it down, see where the scratch marks are. If it's not scratching all the way. Okay, we got that. Turn the machine on, make sure it's locked down, and present it to the wheel. Now, on a parting tool, a spindle roughing gouge rather. This is a spindle roughing gouge. Remember that. Spindle roughing gouge. Do not attempt to rough a bowl with this. This tool is used strictly between centers. The preferred angle, the preferred profile on this type of tool is pretty much flat across the front. Okay, pretty much flat across the front, 45 degrees. Okay, so that's all there is to sharpening a spindle roughing gouge. Excuse me. All right, now let's get into the jigs. The first jig we will use will be the original Verigrind from One Way. Now there are quite a few templates out there that you can use to repeat your grinds. Now, if you notice, you can move this lever, this leg, back and forth, and you can move this in and out. By manipulating this arm and moving this in and out, you can match pretty much every grind that you can use a jig for by manipulating this and this. Manipulating this adjusts the nose angle. Manipulating this, you adjust the side angle on the tool. I found over the years, if you find a sweet spot on this that you like, in my case, I have a tick mark right there. I'll lock it down there, and I never move it. For spindle or roughing, spindle or bowl gouges, that lever stays right there. Okay? Excuse me. Now what I have done, so I get repeated grinds every time, you can do this. You can take your bowl gouge, for instance, and a bowl gouge, the stick out, this is stick out on a bowl gouge, is 2 inches. And you should have somewhere on your platform a block that you can just put the tool up, and this happens to be 2 inches for bowl gouge. This is 1 3/4 for spindle gouge. But have a block or a depth gauge somewhere so you can do that very fast. You can take the tool, put it in that pocket. Now I know that this is set, so I never have to move that. The only thing I have to do now is match up the bevel on the wheel. And right now that looks pretty good. Do you turn the grinder on and start sharpening? No. Once again, give it this test and see if you are in fact taking all the black off. And I can see that I'm not. I'm only taking the black off here. I'm not even sharpening that tool. So what does that mean? That means I have to bring the platform, the V-bar out a little bit and reset and go through that again. Now that is what you would normally do. but help yourself out and make it simple. You can make one of these for the varigrind, for the bowl gouge, and what you do, each time you just set that little dude right in there, bring it up till it touches the wheel, lock it down. Every time, this now is always the same distance from the wheel. One thing you don't want to do, these wheels are friable, and that's another thing I didn't go through and I will go through in a minute. Keep these wheels clean. And each time you dress a wheel, and let me show you what dressing a wheel means. Each time you dress a wheel, you reduce the size of the wheel. So, I'm going to dress this wheel, platform, wheel dresser, and that's what you want. You don't want this. You don't want that wheel to bounce. You just keep pressure on this, on the platform, back and forth, and that cleans the wheel. At the same time, it reduces the size of the wheel. I've seen a couple of videos where people say, well, once you establish that you're satisfied, mark this, and that's all you got to do every time is come back to that same mark. No. The wheel, every time you clean that wheel, it reduces it just a little bit. And if you're turning bowls, by the end of the day, if you've trued that wheel up 15 times, I guarantee you've taken some amount of material off, and it'll change the angle of your tool. How severe is that? It's up to you. But I wouldn't recommend doing that. So now, the jig is, everything is set up to sharpen this tool the same time, same way every time. On a bowl gouge, you lay it on its side, bring it around. If it's a long handle like that, you can change hands. Come around. Now, one thing you want to do, fall in love with this thing. Don't give it one of these. You have no control. Fall in love with this thing. Okay, switch hands. Now, and what you want to do, don't spend too much time on the nose. Get your side profile the way you want it, and then you just come through a sweeping motion and blend your nose and your side angle together. Now, what you want is a nice flow from the side of the gouge down to the nose, on around to the other side. You don't want a big dip in here, and you don't want high ears over here. Now, if I wanted these ears back further, I would just lay the tool more over on the side. Okay, but to me, that's all I need right there for a bowl gouge. Okay? Now we do the same thing with the spindle gouge. Never move this. The only difference, 1 3/4 stick out. 1 3/4 stick out. And on spindle gouges, and this is referred to as a fingernail grind on a spindle gouge, okay? I prefer a 40-degree grind for my general purpose spindle gouge. I also prefer a 1/2 inch spindle gouge, vice a smaller gouge. I use this gouge for most of my work, and I relieve the back side of the gouge, so to the wood, this actually looks like a smaller than 1/2 inch gouge. It might look like a 3/8 or a 1/4 inch gouge. Depends how much of that back of the tool I remove. And it's heavy, and you don't get any chatter. You can take good cuts. Now, to get the angle for that, you have another template, and it's set at 40 degrees. So the only thing you have to move is your V-bar. Get that right up against it, lock it down. Once again, you would paint the tool to make sure you get in it sharp all the way around. Paint it all the way around. Set it in the pocket. Let the machine come up to speed. Now the reason I'm having to grind a little metal off, because these jigs were set up for my machine at my shop. Every machine setup will be a little bit different. If you take my jigs and use them on your machine, you may have to tweak them a little bit. Like if I was going to use these here in the studio, I would tweak them a little bit to get this grind so it be repeated each time. But I'm just showing you, this is how fast you can shape a tool using. Now, if this was a tool that I was taking right out of the box and was going to put this profile on it, I would have gone over to the rough wheel and done all my shaping on the rough wheel, and then come back and do all the sharpening on the 120 smooth wheel. Now, if you notice, momentarily there, I slipped off the side of the wheel. And this is a good time for me to show you the benefit of the Varigrind 2 over the Varigrind, the original Varigrind. Now, that tool is sharp and ready to go to work. Now, if I wanted to relieve that back bevel a little bit while I have it in a jig, I can just come over to the wheel and very gingerly just remove it. And the reason you want to do it now before you take it out of the jig, if you happen to roll it over too far and destroy your cutting edge, you just put it back in the jig, okay? So that takes care of that particular tool. Now, as I mentioned, at one point in time, if you notice, I almost fell off that wheel. That, my friend, is the benefit of the Varigrind 2. And this is a good time for us to show you the Varigrind 2. You can achieve the same angles and sharpness, all of the good stuff, using the Varigrind 2 that you get from the Varigrind 1. They both are jigs that hold the tool to give you repeated grinds. Now what I'm going to do, if you notice, this wheel is pretty much loaded up with metal particles. Now if I continue sharpening tools, what I'm winding up with now is I'm rubbing metal against metal. And that's when you start burning your tools. Now let's talk about burning your tools. If you grind a high-speed steel tool and turn it black, you have not taken the temper out of the tool. You cannot get it hot enough off of a grinder to remove the temper. The only thing you're doing is making the tool ugly and taking away unnecessary metal. So we will clean this before we sharpen at any other tool.
Should you be wearing a dust mask?
If you're going to do a lot of dressing or sharpening, you should have a dust mask on, yes. And you should have good ventilation if you do. If I'm just doing my normal turning, I would have a dust mask on to begin with. But during this demo, I don't have a dust mask on. Good point. Saw me dress the wheel using this diamond dresser right here. This is my preferred dresser. You can get it from some of the outlets. They run about $45, $48, but they're impregnated with diamond all the way through. This is the El Cheapo for $15, $18. It's diamond face. Does the same job, just doesn't last long. This is just a smaller version of the diamond all the way through. And this is nothing more than a stick that you can use that is harder than the wheel. And you can clean the wheel with this type of stick also.
What about the one-way wheel dresser?
And also, One Way has a wheel dresser that is part of the jig system that sits in a mechanism, and it has a diamond tip on a dresser that you can clean the wheel with. I personally don't use them. They're great. It's just some extra setup time, but they do a beautiful job. Thank you for mine. Okay, we got the wheel clean. Now let's go to the Verigrind 2. The Verigrind 2 is much different than the Verigrind, inasmuch as it has an attachment that fits in the holder, and then the leg fits in this holder, and it's pivoted. It doesn't allow you to fall off the wheel. Now let's take that same half-inch spindle gouge that we just sharpened, put it in here, and if you have everything set up and you've done your work in setting this arm as well as that arm, what you have to do when you're going to use, if you're going to use both systems on a machine, you have to play with them till you get them both to match the same grind, okay? Normally, you would have one or the other. I happen to have two, but most of the time I use my new Verigrind 2. So anyhow, same stick out. Spindle gouge, 1 3/4, bowl gouge, 2 inches. Once again, the old method, you take it, set it up to the wheel, turn it on, see if it matches. If not, make your adjustment. And once again, paint your profile. It does help. What that does, it saves metal for you. Now, that was the Verigrind platform templates we had here. We'll get them out of the way. Now we also have a template for the Verigrind 2, and it says Verigrind 2. So you take this dude, put it in here, bring it up to the wheel, and in this case, I use it at my studio when I set it up, and my wheel is a little bit bigger than this, so I would have to cut a notch in here to get it to match, but we'll do the best we can. You getting the, okay. You getting the idea. So this would, repetition is what we're looking for. So then, we set this in the cradle, turn the machine on. We wouldn't turn the machine on right away. In this case, we would, because we don't move this, and we put this jig in there, and we set this. Now, every time we do that, we should get the same grind. And that's pretty close, judging going from one machine to the other. But I'll show you how this is done. Now we set up, we would go through the same procedure each time, but look at this, you don't have to hold it either. Now, some people say, well, look, what you're doing is setting the wheel. That's pretty good. Okay, as you see, there's a little black left here because different machines, different setup. But anyhow, that gives you the basic idea. Now, back to some people complain, well look, you're scalloping out the center of the wheel. So what? Dress the wheel more often. Yes, it does, because you're sharpening right on the center of the wheel. Agreed. If you have problems with that, stick with the Verigrind. But this is fail-safe, and it's very, very safe. I recommend this highly. It's very, very, very safe. You can't fall off the side of the wheel, okay? So that takes care of that. Now, I'm going to go to the bowl gouge, and since we set up with the Verigrind 2, we're going to go ahead and sharpen the bowl gouge with the Verigrind 2. But back again, if I was using the Verigrind, I would go through the same procedure. The stick out is still 2 inches for the bowl gouge, 1 3/4 for the spindle gouge. So we do our stick out at 2 inches. Okay? We get our little block that we're going to use here for bowl gouge, Verigrind 2, stick out 2 inches. Set it in here. Bring it up to the wheel. Lock it down. Paint. So we can see where we are. Paint this. Turn the machine on. We're not going to worry about checking it, because we're going to assume that the jig is set up right. And that would basically be all you need. Now, you can see that this is still black here because I went from my machine at home to this machine, and it's set up a little bit different. But the tool is sharp. The tool is sharp right here. That's the main thing. Okay? Basically, that's how you sharpen a bull gouge. Now, we have another machine over here. Okay, now on the CBN wheels, the jigs are very simple to set up because the wheel doesn't disintegrate. The distance from here to the wheel is always the same, so it's very simple to set up some little jigs. And I'm using this corner molding. I have some set up for Verigrind and others set up for Verigrind 2. I have the 60 degree for the bowl gouge, I have a 45 degree for a spindle, and I have a 40 degree for a spindle. Right now, we're just going to use the Verigrind 2, excuse me, and I'm going to set it up for the bowl gouge. Take a minute to take this off, it gets in the way. Now this is going to be the Verigrind 2 60 degree bowl gouge. Just set it in here, bring it up, lock it down, remove it. Remember, you'd never move these arms. You can if you wish, but I don't. Once I set them on both the Verigrind and the Verigrind 2, this never moves. The only thing I vary is the distance right here. So that's all I would do now is put that in there and go ahead and sharpen that tool. Okay, the same way I did on the dry grinder. Same deal, okay? Same way. Now I'll remove that, and I didn't want to do that. Now, on the CBN wheels, you can get them in 60 or 180. And they do a beautiful job. That 180 just polishes the tool. Since I'm already set up on the 80 grit side, and it doesn't matter to me if I'm turning bowls The 80 degree makes the tool more aggressive, and I like it. If I'm doing my final cuts, if I'm coming up and sharpening the tool, I may go to the 180. If I'm all set up over here, I just stay over here on the 80 grit. Now, those wheels take a while to get up to speed because they're so heavy, and they'll take a long time to slow down after you sharpen. But once again, that's all there is to using a Verigrind tool. And now normally you would make one pass and be done, but once again, since these machines were set up different than my machines at home, I'm getting slightly different grind. Everything will work, it'll still be 60 degrees, but on this one, I see my shoulders will be a little more, this angle will be a little bit less right now when I use this machine vice over here. So you have to be very cautious when you go from one machine to the other. If you're that particular and you want it set up and you're going to use the CBN wheel all the time, then that's the way you want to do it. You can't be going from one machine to the other, okay, because the jigs aren't set up that precise. At my shop they are, but here, since it's different machines. But anyhow, even to take that much metal off, the tool it would still be the same mold valve, just a little different on the wing side. In fact, some people like the side of the tool, this, to be less of an angle, I would say. I haven't changed that 60 degree. It'll still be 60 degree there. But this angle will change a little bit. But look how easy that is with the Verigrind too. There's no effort to it. And once again, on these CBN wheels, you see very little sparks. So it is very advisable on these wheels that you use the black magic marker or any color magic marker to mark the tool so you can see where you're grinding, because since these guys don't leave a telltale trail of sparks coming over the cutting edge, you may not realize the tool is sharp and you continue to grind and you're just wasting steel. Now, how can you tell if that tool's sharp? Once you think it's sharp all the way around, you can look at the cutting edge and when you look straight down at the cutting edge, if you cannot see the cutting edge, if it looks like just a little black line, it's sharp. If you see any glitter on that cutting edge, that tool is not sharp. So if it looks almost invisible where it comes to the cutting edge, then that tool is sharp. Okay? If you have any questions?
CA, can you do carbon steel with the CBNs?
No. Good point, Frank. CBN wheels are designed for high-speed steel only. Do not put any other kind of steel on it. You will ruin the wheel, and they are non-repairable. If you come here with a piece of aluminum, which I have done, that's a no-no. Come with a carbon steel. The carbon steel would get embedded in this grit, and the wheel is basically ruined. Okay? You might get by with it once, but you don't want to do it too many times. Any further questions?
Is there various grades of high-speed steel? It doesn't matter?
No. As long as it's high-speed steel, it'll work. Okay? Thank you very much.